Today I'm in Isaiah 42. Um, there's a lot of, being in this is the New Testament part of Isaiah, so there's a lot of stuff going into the Messiah, and more things that are happening even today. So it's a fairly simple message, but there's a lot of good stuff in it too. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your love and your mercy, and open up our hearts and our minds that we may receive the message you have for us and to strengthen us. In Jesus' name, amen. So chapter 42 starts off, "Behold my servant, upon whom I uphold, my elect one in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the Gentiles." Now, in much of the book of Isaiah, when he talks about my servant, he's usually talking about Israel, because they were the appointed ones. They were the firstborn. They were the chosen one that's supposed to lead the rest of us. But here, all of a sudden, God says, upon him, okay, he has put his spirit. So now we're talking about a different servant. We're talking about Jesus. Because Jesus is the one who brought forth justice, to the Gentiles, who allowed it to where we could be drafted into the vine. He will not cry out, nor raise his voice, nor cause his voice to be heard in the streets. Jesus wasn't standing on the street corner with a megaphone, preaching out. That was John the Baptist, remember? John the Baptist was the voice crying out in the desert. He was making the pathway straight to Jesus. Yes, Jesus taught, large crowds and stuff, but yeah, he wasn't, the one, declaring things out in the streets. No, that's what his disciples and John the Baptist was for. A bruised reed he will not break. A smoking flax he will not quench. He will bring forth justice for truth. And of course, we were talking this morning about, it's been a rough week. I mean, do you feel like a smoking flax? Do you feel like your embers of your fire are no longer, the coals are no longer red? You feel like all your fuel is gone, and all anything left is just an ember of smoke left? Or do you feel like the bruised reed? Okay, have you been beaten, and have you been beaten down where you don't feel you have anything left? Well, that's where Jesus comes in. He doesn't break you. He doesn't burn out your fire. He restores us. That's what we were talking about last week. Wait upon the Lord and he will give you strength. And he will bring forth justice and truth. He will not fail, nor be discouraged. Jesus didn't fail, nor was he discouraged in his task that he had to perform, till he has established justice in the earth. Notice it says in, not on. Remember, he conquered hell, death, and the grave. And the coastlands shall wait for his law. Now, the word coastlands is very curious because we're talking about other nations. So if you ever look, where does United States, fits in the Bible or whatever, this is probably, when you see this word, it might be one of those, small clues. But the Hebrew word used does mean different things. It's noted down the bottom. A habitable spot, a dry land, a coast, or an island. Of course, island can be defined as a continent as well. Thus says the God, the Lord, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who has spread forth the earth and that which comes from it, who gives breath to the people on it, and spirit to those who walk in it. And God, created us all. I, the Lord, have called you and I, in righteousness, and will hold your hand. I will keep you and give you as a covenant to the people, as a light to the Gentiles. And that's the Great Commission. It's to, go forth and be that light. To open blind eyes and to bring out prisoners from the prisons, who sit in the darkness from the prison house. I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory will not give to another, nor my praise to carve images. Behold, the former things have come to pass, and new things I declare. Before they spring forth, I will tell you of them. So we're to open up the blind eyes, and it's not just the physical eyes. We're talking about the people who can't see the truth. And when we have that issue today with the social media and everything, so many people are blinded to obvious things, of doing the right things, just right in front of their face. And there's people who are trapped. They made their own prison walls around them, and we are to set them free of that. Bring light into their prison cell, so they can break free. And the Lord has, that is my name, and I will not give glory to another. In the New Testament, we hear Jesus, talked about sharing the glory with God, which, well, if God says he will not share his glory with any other, but yet it was with Jesus, then Jesus must be God. One of your evidence proof of the trilogy. Behold, the former things have not come to pass, and the new things I declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. And then, of course, in the Bible, we have all these end-time revelations of things to come. That nothing is hidden from us of what's going to happen. We know it well in advance. So sing to the Lord a new song, and praise from ends of the earth. You who go down to the sea and and all that is in it, you coastlands and you inhabitants of them. So sing a new song. Of course, it's always the old story of truth, but sing a new song. Same topic, just new song. Let the wilderness and the cities lift up their voice, and the villages of Kedar inhabitants, let the inhabitants of Selah sing. Let them shout from the top of the mountains. Let them give glory to the Lord and declare his praise in the coastland. So we're talking about everywhere. Everywhere should sing. Everyone, everywhere, this sing of God's glory, to raise up our voices, especially in times of trouble, to lift them up even higher. Verse 13, the Lord shall go forth like a mighty man. He shall stir up his zeal like a man of war. He shall cry out, yes, shout aloud. He shall prevail against his enemies. I have held my peace a long time. I have been still and restrained myself. Now I will cry like a woman in labor, and I will pant and gasp at once. So we started this off with Jesus not being that loud voice in the streets. Now we're talking about the Jesus who's going to return and be that loud voice. His first mission was to save, and then now his next mission is to conquer. And, it's the Greek word in the New Testament where Jesus said, I'm coming back soon. It doesn't mean the soon that you and I think is in time-based. It means more like suddenly or all of a sudden. Like when And in like a woman in labor, all of a sudden those pains come upon her, and they come upon her rapidly and quickly. That's the word, the Greek word that was used in the New Testament when Jesus said, "I am coming soon." Because when it happens, it's going to happen quickly, and it's going to be, I will pant and gasp at once. It'll happen very, very suddenly and quickly. And of course, we're seeing things starting to happen quicker and quicker and quicker. Verse 15. I will lay waste the mountains and the hills. I will dry up the vegetation. I will make the rivers and coastlands, and I will dry up the pools. Now, this coastlands, we go back, the Greek word had different meanings. There's this is one spot here that the King James Version, coastlands, probably should have been worded dry spot. I will make the rivers a dry spot, and I will dry up the pools. I will bring the blind by a way they did not know. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked places straight. These things I will do for them, and not forsake them. Jesus, God's always going to make us a way. God's always going to have a plan. We're never going to, sure, we might have some wants, but we're never going to have any needs. And it's going to be, it's going to be clear and easy if we just take our own blinders off and see the truth of, our way and our direction. Verse 17, they shall be turned back. They shall be greatly ashamed, who trust in carved images, who say to the molded images, you are our God. Hear, you deaf, and look, you blind, that you may see. So he's going to turn those back. He's when especially when Revelations and the tribulation comes, people are going to be turned back, and the Jews are going to be greatly ashamed of what they didn't see in the Bible that was there the whole time. So they're finally going to, finally they're going to hear, finally they're going to see. Who is blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger, whom I send? Who is blind as he who is perfect, and blind as the Lord's servant, seeing many things, but you do not observe, opening the ears, but he does not hear. So we're talking about my servant now is we're going back to Israel. Israel was the firstborn. They were the chosen. They were the keepers of the law. They were to guide us. And they are blind. They cannot see. They're deaf. They do not hear what where people try to tell them, see, here's the truth. I mean, the Jewish law actually prohibits them of calculating the days of Daniel. That tells them the Messiah came. They're actually forbidden to do that. So they're even strangled that they can't. They're not able to even look at the truth. And here's the word perfect. He who is perfect is another, I think another King James bad interpretation, unless you take it as sarcasm. He who is perfect, because the Jews are not perfect. But the actual Hebrew word was a covenant, a partner in covenant, or like a marriage. And of course, there's other definitions you think that the Hebrew word could also have. But he who was in a covenant with God. I mean, because that's what Israel had that covenant with God, but yet, but they're blinded. But one day they will see truth. Verse 21, the Lord is well pleased for his righteous sake. He will exalt the law and make it honorable. Remember, Jesus came not to finish, do away with the law, but to complete it. So the law is honorable. And, for his righteous sake, not ours. But this is the people robbed and plundered. And the Jews have experienced that over the centuries. All of them are snared in holes, and they are hidden in prison houses. They're trapped in their own cells. They are for prey, and no one delivers. For plunder, and no one says, restore. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will listen and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for plunder and Israel to the robbers? Was it not the Lord? He against whom we have sinned. For they would not walk in his ways, nor were they obedient to his law. So God has given them over to plunder. And of course, the word Jacob is the troublemaker. And we definitely see the time of Jacob's trouble being referenced that, of what they will endure yet to come. And it's all but because the Lord. Because they would not walk in his ways or be obedient to his law. In verse 25, therefore he has poured on him, Jerusalem, the fury of his anger and the strength of battle. It has set him on fire all around, yet he did not know. And it burned him. It burned Jerusalem. Yet he did not take it to heart. It's amazing how we have people who are in trouble or are bound or and yet they see everything that God is doing around them in their life, and yet they still reject God. Too many people are looking for the blessings, and yet they don't thank God for those blessings. And yet when God puts things in their life, they're like, how can there be a God when he does these things? So through the good times they reject God, and through the bad times they reject God. They even though God has put fire in their life to make them turn, they don't turn. They don't take it to heart of why these things are coming to pass. And it's really hard for us to minister. And I really, Marcy has it really tough to these people who can't even see the truth. So how do we minister to those people who can't see what, God's trying to shake them. God's trying to get their attention. But they still don't see it. They still don't see the truth.
Not even when Heidi whacks them with her binder.
Yes, whacking over top of the head sometimes don't work either.
No.
But
it feels good in the moment, which is bad.
But that's really a challenge for us. Is how do we get them to see? How do we reach out to them and to let them see that, this is why, But yes, sometimes God puts things in our lives and shakes us up to get our attention. 'Cause sometimes it takes a binder across the top of the head to get our attention sometimes.
Yeah, you would think that potentially losing your child would get your attention, but not necessarily even that.
Even in great loss. I mean, there's people who reject God because how can they take my mom away from me? You know, or other loved ones. And me and Michelle was watching a show, and Love Is Blind, I think is what it was.
I think.
Anyway,
brainless
the
thing
one
we were
woman
watching.
says she grew up, you know, in a godly church, but God took her mom away from me. And if it was a loving God, how could He ever do such a thing? Well, apparently, God was trying to get her attention, and it wasn't working. Now she completely rejects God over it. How do you reach the people like that? They still don't see truth. They don't see what's going on around them. It's a challenge for us. A real challenge. Not to mention that we have our own trying weeks and trials in our own life to overcome. And yes, you know, this week is definitely, I feel like a smoking blast. You know, my embers have definitely need refueling. My fire is about out. It's very trying. And yes, many times we feel beat down and, you know, like a bruised reed. So if any of that is you today, and remember that, you know, spending time with the Lord is our strength, as we talked about last week. So renew your strength in the Lord. Whether prayer or quiet time, that's where you'll find it. But if anybody else has a need, you know, feel free to come forward as we sing our last song. We'll be happy to pray with you, all of us, not just me and Michelle.